Hello, in this video, I'm going to explain the difference between autonomic or visceral reflexes and somatic reflexes. First, a quick rundown of the components of a reflex arc. So we start with the stimulus, so something that triggers the reflex to take place. That signal is carried through a sensory neuron to an integrating center, either in the brain or the spinal cord. The integrating center relays that sensory information to a motor neuron so that we're carrying a motor plan, we're carrying a response via the motor neuron to an effector, which is the part of the body that is going to do the actual responding to that stimulus. So the difference between an autonomic reflex and a somatic reflex is basically what is the effector. That's the big difference. So if the effector, the part of the reflex arc that is doing the actual responding and actually taking action, if that effector is smooth muscle or glands, so effectors that are under normal autonomic control, then it's an autonomic reflex. If the effector is skeletal muscle, meaning effectors that are under normal somatic control, then it's a somatic reflex. Now, a point where people often get confused is that all reflexes are involuntary. So it's kind of confusing to think of a somatic reflex because we tend to think of our somatic nervous system as being our voluntary control over skeletal muscle. But all reflexes are involuntary, whether they are autonomic or somatic. The real question is, do you have voluntary control over the effectors that are responding? So even though you don't have voluntary control over the reflex itself, you do have voluntary control over your skeletal muscles that are responding as part of that reflex. Therefore, it's a somatic reflex if it's caused by skeletal muscle. An example of a somatic reflex would be a withdrawal reflex. So if I touch a hot stove, I'm going to immediately draw back reflexively. That's the withdrawal reflex. So automatic withdrawal of a limb from a painful stimulus. So it's involuntary, but it's a somatic reflex because I used skeletal muscle, which is normally under somatic control, to execute that reflex. An autonomic reflex, a good example, is the pupillary light reflex. So if we shine light into your eyes, your pupils are going to constrict. So pupillary light reflex is really the change in size of your pupil in response to changing levels of light. Now, you have no voluntary control over that. That is happening because of smooth muscle, and we cannot voluntarily control that smooth muscle. So that is an autonomic reflex. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.